Hello, friends. You're watching The Night Watchman, where every day you'll hear a brand new horror story that will send chills down your spine. But to keep bringing you these terrifying tales, we need your love and support. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's begin the story. I never believed the rumors about Elkwood Street. In my 29 years living in Fremont, California, I'd walked through every alley, every back road, every abandoned lot. But Elkwood Street had always been the one place my mother told me to avoid at night. It changes after dark, she used to say when I was a kid. People there aren't people. She never explained what she meant. I always thought it was just an old superstition, a story passed down by working-class families like ours who needed something to blame for the strange crimes that happened in the neighborhood. But that night, the night everything changed, I learned exactly what she meant. It started because I needed extra money. My rent had gone up, my car needed repairs, and my job at the warehouse in Milpitas had cut my hours again. My friend Ethan Walters told me there was a pop-up night market on Elkwood Street that paid vendors cash under the table. They don't check IDs, Ethan had said. They don't ask questions. You just show up, help unload crates, and they hand you 200 bucks. $200 for one night? I couldn't say no, so at 10:43 p.m. on a cold Friday night in November, I parked my aging Honda Civic near the mouth of Elkwood Street, shoved my hands in my jacket pockets, and began walking down the dimly lit block. The first thing I noticed was the silence. No traffic, no dogs barking, no music from nearby apartments. Just silence, as if the street had been sucked out of the city and placed somewhere else entirely. Then I saw the lights, soft, warm, golden lights strung between the buildings, like a hidden festival. A row of makeshift stalls lined both sides of the street. Vendors wearing old-fashioned clothes arranged their goods in perfect rows. Jars of herbs, wooden trinkets, strange fruits I'd never seen before, and old rusty tools that looked like they belonged in a museum. It looked like a market from another century. But what caught my attention was the smell. Not food, not spices, not smoke, but something metallic, almost like blood. I shook it off and stepped deeper into the market. That was my first mistake. I spotted Ethan near a stall selling bright red candles that flickered even without wind. "Took you long enough," Ethan said, clapping my shoulder. "You ready to make some easy money?" "Yeah," I said. "What exactly do they sell here?" He shrugged. "Never asked, never needed to. Just finish the job, get the cash, go home." Something about the way he said it made me uneasy, as if he wanted to avoid the topic entirely. I looked closer at the vendors. Their clothes weren't just old-fashioned. They looked outdated, like something from the 1950s. Some wore suspenders, others wore long dresses that brushed the ground. But what unsettled me the most were their expressions. Every single vendor wore the same faint smile, wide, stiff, and unblinking. It wasn't human. It wasn't natural. Before I could ask more questions, a tall man with pale skin and sunken eyes approached us. His voice sounded like dry leaves scraping across pavement. "You two," he said, pointing with a long, bony finger. "Help unload from the truck." He didn't blink once. Ethan nodded and whispered, "Come on, just do the job." We followed the man behind a row of stalls until we reached a narrow alley. A large, rusted delivery truck sat idling, its back doors open. Inside were dozens of wooden crates stamped with a symbol I had never seen before. An eye crossed with 3 lines. "What's in the crates?" I asked. The pale man's smile widened unnaturally. "Merchandise." We each grabbed a crate. It was surprisingly warm, and carried it to an empty stall. When I set mine down, I heard something shift inside, like liquid sloshing, or something breathing. I froze. "Ethan, did you hear that?" Ethan didn't meet my eyes. "Just keep working," he muttered. His tone had changed. He wasn't just nervous. He was scared. As we unloaded more crates, I began noticing small details I had missed before. Every stall in the market was arranged perfectly. Too perfectly. No stall had a single hair out of place. Every vendor stood with the same posture, with their hands folded in front of them. And all of them watched us. Not glanced, not peeked. Watched. Their heads didn't move, but their eyes followed us with cold patience, like predators studying prey. I whispered to Ethan, "Why are they staring at us?" "They always stare," he said under his breath. "Just don't look back." We brought out another crate, and this one was heavier. It thumped against my arms with each step, as if something inside was moving deliberately. "What the hell is in here?" I asked again. But before Ethan could answer, the pale man reappeared behind us silently. Too silently. I flinched when I realized he had been standing close enough to touch me without making a sound. He tilted his head and said, "You will be paid when the market closes. Do not ask questions. Do not touch the merchandise. And when the bell rings, you leave." "When does the market close?" and I asked. His smile stretched even wider. "When the bell decides." I didn't understand what he meant until later, much later. At around 12:15 a.m., the market became more crowded. People flowed in from the shadows, older men in suits, women holding black umbrellas even though it wasn't raining, and children dressed in outdated school uniforms. None of them spoke. None of them carried phones. None of them even looked at each other. They all moved with the same eerie rhythm, the same silent coordination, like they were connected by something unseen. Ethan and I stood near the truck, trying not to draw attention. But every so often, someone would brush past me, a little too close, and I'd feel a sudden drop in temperature, as if they sucked the warmth out of the air with them. "Ethan," I whispered, "are these people even alive?" He swallowed. "Don't ask that." My voice trembled. "What did you drag me into?" He rubbed his face. "I needed the money, and I thought maybe things would be different tonight." "What things?" He didn't answer, but his eyes were full of guilt. Then, at exactly 12:33 a.m., something strange happened. A woman in a long white dress stepped up to one of the stalls. Her hair was jet black and fell to her waist. She stared at the vendor without blinking. "I want a name," she said. Her voice was cold, hollow. The vendor nodded and reached beneath the stall, pulling out a jar filled with thick red liquid. He unscrewed the lid, and the smell of iron hit my nose again. Blood. The vendor dipped a long, thin brush into the jar and started writing something on a small piece of parchment. The woman watched with hunger. When the vendor finished, she pressed the parchment to her chest and let out a sigh. Long, relieved, almost ecstatic. Then she walked away. "What the hell was that?" I whispered. Ethan grabbed my arm tightly, harder than necessary. "Don't watch them," he whispered. "Don't listen, and whatever you do, don't buy anything." At 1:04 a.m., the bell rang. It wasn't a normal bell. It wasn't even metallic. It sounded like a scream, distorted, stretched, echoing across the market. All the vendors froze. All the customers froze. The entire market fell silent. Then slowly, they all turned toward me. Ethan grabbed my wrist. "Run!" "What?" "Run!" Before I could process what was happening, the crowd began moving. Toward me, not like a group of people, but like a swarm. Their movements synchronized, their footsteps silent, their faces twisted into the same unnatural smile. I stumbled backward, confused and terrified. "What did I do?" "You brought something with you," Ethan yelled, pulling me into the alley. "You weren't supposed to come here. You weren't invited." "What are you talking about?" We ran, but the pale man appeared in front of us, blocking the exit of the alley. His voice was no longer soft. It was deep, echoing, layered with several tones at once. "Outsiders cannot touch the market," he said. "You broke the rule when you opened the first crate." "I didn't open anything." "You touched what breathed," he said. "Now it wants you." I didn't understand what he meant, but behind the pale man, the crates began shaking violently, one after another, like something inside them was trying to break free. "Ethan," I whispered, "what's inside those crates?" Ethan's face was pale. "Names." "What?" "The market sells names," he whispered. "Real names, soul names, the kind a person is born with. They harvest them, store them, trade them." My blood ran cold. The crates weren't filled with objects. They were filled with identities, lives, the essence of people. And I had carried them, touched them, warmed them with my hands. "I don't want any part of this," I yelled. The pale man stepped closer, his face morphing slightly, as if his skin were made of wax. It's too late! The crowd surged into the alley. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Their mouths opened slightly, not to speak, but to inhale, as if smelling me. Ethan shoved me behind him. "Take me instead," he said. He didn't know the rules. I did. For the first time, I realized Ethan wasn't just a worker here. He was involved, deeply involved. The pale man tilted his head. "You offer willingly?" "Yes," Ethan whispered. "Just let him go." "No," the pale man said softly. He touched the breathing crate. It chose him. The crowd closed in. Their hands, cold, unnatural, reached for me. I tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The stalls moved. The walls of the alley shifted. The market itself rearranged to trap me, like it was alive. "Stop!" Ethan yelled, pushing through the swarm. "Take my name!" The pale man paused. The crowd stopped. Everyone went still. The pale man leaned closer to Ethan. "Your name is worthless," he whispered. Ethan froze, shocked. The pale man turned toward me. "But his name," he said, pointing his long bony finger at my chest, "still holds power. It still has future. It still has breath." I stumbled back. "Please, I don't want to be part of this." "You already are." The pale man reached into his coat and pulled out a parchment and brush. The brush dripped with dark red ink. "No, not ink. Blood." He stepped toward me. "Your name," he said, "must be removed." I shook violently. "No, please, don't." Suddenly, a loud crack erupted in the alley. One of the crates had burst open. Everyone turned. Inside the crate was something I can never forget. A pulsing, fleshy mass, shaped like a human heart, but covered in dozens of small, twitching mouths. Each mouth whispered names, hundreds of them, layered, desperate, pleading. My name was one of them. I heard it clearly. "Michael, Michael, Michael." The moment it whispered my name, the fleshy mass lunged forward, slamming against the alley floor, dragging itself toward me with wet slaps. The crowd parted for it. It wanted me. "Run!" Ethan screamed. I ran. For the first time, the market didn't try to trap me. It let me run, because the thing behind me was faster. I sprinted down the alley, tripping over wires and debris. The fleshy creature crawled behind me, its mouths opening into sharp, needle-like teeth. "Michael!" I reached the end of the alley and burst onto the main street. The lights were off. The stalls were gone. The vendors were gone. Elkwood Street was empty, completely empty. But the creature was still coming. I dove into my car, slammed the door, and turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, then roared to life. The creature hurled itself at the window. Crack! I screamed and hit the gas. The car shot forward. The creature clung to the side, its mouth gnashing inches from my face. I swerved wildly, left, right, left, until finally the creature lost its grip and tumbled onto the road. I didn't slow down. I didn't look back. I drove until the sky grew light. By morning, Elkwood Street looked normal again. No lights, no stalls, no vendors, no crates. Just an empty, quiet street. Ethan's car was gone. I never saw him again. When I returned home, I tried to forget what happened. But at night, I still hear the whispers. In my room, in my bathroom, in my car. Sometimes I hear my name. Sometimes I hear dozens of names layered together. Sometimes I hear something crawling under my bed. Last night, I found a small piece of parchment slipped under my door. On it, written in dark red ink, was my name. Underneath it, one sentence. The market will return when the bell decides. I don't know when that is. I don't know how much time I have left. All I know is this. Something is coming back for me, and next time, I won't escape. Story 2. I never believed a street market could hold anything more terrifying than overpriced souvenirs and the occasional pickpocket. But that changed the night I took the closing shift at Fremont Street Market in Reno, Nevada, a place famous for neon lights, weekend stalls, and buskers playing out-of-tune guitars. I wasn't originally a night person. I used to work mornings at a small electronics store back in Carson City. Then life happened. My mom's medical bills piled up, rent skyrocketed, and a breakup left my savings torn apart like scrap paper. So I moved to Reno and started taking whatever jobs I could get. That's how I ended up working nights at an outdoor market and security booth, earning 13 bucks an hour and drinking more coffee than any doctor would approve of. My job sounded simple. Check vendor permits, help tourists find their way, call for backup if fights broke out. But the real reason security was needed wasn't something the city posted online. Vendors whispered about it at closing time. Stories about a man who only appeared after midnight, selling strange items no one could verify. Items people claimed they didn't remember buying, or worse, didn't want to remember. They called him the shadow seller. Most people thought it was just a made-up tale to scare new workers like me. I laughed it off until December 5th. It was a cold Friday, the kind of night where the desert wind cut through 3 layers of clothing. I sat in the booth sipping burnt coffee, watching the last few vendors shut down their stalls. Christmas lights flickered overhead, giving the street a warm glow despite the emptying crowd. At 12:18 a.m., the cameras began glitching. Screen 3, facing the old antiques row, went black. Screen 5, near the produce stalls, froze with static lines. Then screen 1 flickered repeatedly like a heartbeat. I tapped the monitor, annoyed. "Come on, not tonight." That's when I saw him, a figure emerging near the far end of the market, where no vendor should still be open. He walked slowly, his long coat brushing the ground, carrying a cart that was not part of any vendor inventory. The cameras didn't freeze this time. They distorted, as if reacting to him. I leaned forward. He set up a small table. No lights, no stall number, no permit. Yet he arranged his items like he'd been doing this for decades. Curiosity won. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out of the booth. As I walked toward him, my radio buzzed with faint static, like someone whispering through it. When I reached his table, I stopped cold. The items laid out weren't normal street market goods. No jewelry, no snacks, no trinkets. Instead, he sold old photographs, all black and white, all placed carefully in glass frames. But what froze me wasn't the photos themselves. It was the fact that every single picture showed someone standing in Fremont Market, looking terrified. Some were crying, some were running, some were pointing at something outside the frame, and one looked like me. Same jacket, same security badge, same posture. But in the photo, I was looking over my shoulder, face pale with fear. My voice cracked. What is this?" The man finally lifted his head. He was too tall, too thin, his face pale like old paper. His eyes were a washed-out gray, almost lifeless, yet sharp enough to pin me to the spot. "You're early," he said, voice smooth but empty. "This picture was meant for later." My spine locked up. "How do you have a picture of me?" He tilted his head. "I don't take them. I only sell what time has already decided." My breath caught. What is that supposed to mean? He ignored the question and gently slid the frame photo of me closer. "This one is yours." I stepped back. "I'm not buying anything." He smiled faintly. "You already did." Something shifted in his expression, like disappointment mixed with hunger. He lifted one finger and pointed past me. "You should start running now." I froze. "What?" His voice hardened. "Run." The lights across the market flickered violently. Stalls slammed open on their own. The wind burst down the central corridor with a force that didn't feel natural. I turned around, and everything changed. The market looked longer than before. Stalls expanded endlessly into the distance. The neon lights warped into deep red, casting the street in a demonic glow. The ground felt like it was vibrating under my feet. Then I heard footsteps. Quick, heavy, uneven. Someone, or something, was running toward me from the darkness. I didn't wait. I sprinted down the corridor, heart banging in my chest. My breath felt hot, like the air itself was tightening around me. Every step echoed unnaturally loud, as if the market had become a tunnel. I shouted into my radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. Is anyone there?" Static filled the speaker. Then, "You shouldn't have looked at the picture." It wasn't dispatch. It wasn't my voice. It wasn't human. I tried to retrace my steps toward the main security booth, But the market had shifted. Pathways that once led straight now curved into dead ends. Stalls repeated themselves, identical down to every scratch and scribble. It was a maze, a shifting, breathing maze. I forced myself to slow down, trying to steady my breathing. That's when I noticed something horrifying. Every frame picture from the shadow seller's table was now hanging inside the stalls as I passed them. Every photograph showed another moment of someone about to die. Middle-aged man reaching toward a shadow, teen girl screaming, old woman crawling toward the camera, and each photo frame was warmer than the air around it, like the images themselves were alive. Then I saw it, my photo again. But this time, I wasn't alone in it. A tall, dark silhouette stood behind my figure in the frame. My heart stuttered. The silhouette slowly lifted its hand in the picture. And behind me, something cold brushed the back of my neck. I spun around. Nothing. But I could hear breathing. Slow. Deep. Right above me. I ran again. I stumbled into an open square near the center of the market. The lights here were flickering softly, almost normal. For a moment, I thought I'd escaped whatever nightmare I'd fallen into. Then I saw the man again. The shadow seller stood calmly in the middle of the square, his table beside him, though I hadn't seen him carry or move it. He held the frame of my photo in his hand. "You can't escape your own timeline," he said softly. "Everyone comes to this market to buy something. You bought knowledge. Knowledge you were never meant to see." I shook my head violently. "I didn't buy anything. I didn't agree to anything." His eyes dimmed. "You looked. That was enough." Wind roared through the square. The stalls groaned, bending inward like metal warped by heat. Shadows pooled at his feet like liquid. I backed away, trembling. "What do you want from me?" He lifted the photograph again. "This is just one possible picture of you. One ending." He slowly turned the frame around. The photo had changed again. Now it showed me lying on the ground, eyes open but lifeless, market lights reflecting in them. I choked on my breath. "No! No!" He stepped closer. "You can still walk away. But every choice from here changes the picture. Whether you live or die tonight depends on what you do next." The ground beneath me shook. "Choose," he whispered. My instincts screamed at me. I didn't know what he was or what ruled this place now. But I knew one thing. If he controlled the timeline, then I needed to break it. So I did the only thing that didn't appear in any picture. I ran toward him. His eyes widened, not in fear but in surprise. "No!" I grabbed the frame from his hands and smashed it on the ground. Glass shattered across the pavement. The photo inside flickered like a dying flame before turning blank white. A piercing screech tore across the market, like metal scraping metal. The lights exploded in showers of sparks. The ground trembled violently. "You fool!" the shadow seller roared. "You broke the anchor." The stalls around us collapsed inward, shadows rushing into a vortex forming above the table. His long coat whipped in the wind as he reached toward me. I dove backward, crawling away as the vortex pulled him in. His voice echoed in a dozen tones at once. "The market does not forgive." With a final scream, he was sucked upward and vanished completely. The vortex collapsed with a thunderous boom. Darkness swallowed everything. When I opened my eyes, dawn sunlight shone across Fremont Market. The stalls were normal again. People were setting up for the morning rush. My booth was intact. I stood shakily, brushing dust off my jacket. A vendor waved at me. "Rough night, kid. You look like hell." I forced a weak laugh. "You could say that." But when I walked back to the security booth, my blood froze. On the desk lay a single glass frame, a blank picture, except for one detail. A new silhouette was forming faintly in my outline. I turned the frame face down and backed away. I quit that job an hour later. I moved out of Reno the next day. But even now, months later, every night when the clock hits 12:18 a.m., I feel something shift in the air, like someone is waiting, like a picture is still being developed. And I know one thing. The shadow seller didn't die in that vortex. He just went looking for a new market, and eventually, he'll find me again. Story 3. I never believed a crowded street market could feel lonely, until the night I walked into the Garland Street Market in Redville, Michigan. and realized I wasn't supposed to be there after dark. I grew up in Redville, moved away for college, and had just returned after 11 years. My mother's health was getting worse, and I needed to be with her. I worked days at a local print shop, repairing old machines, and handling walk-in customers who still preferred paper over pixels. At night, I wandered the town to shake off the stress. That's how I ended up rediscovering Garland Street, once famous for its food stalls and local artisans, now half abandoned, running only on weekends, its vendors clinging to nostalgia more than profit. On the night everything changed, I wasn't planning to stay long. The fall wind was sharp, the street lamps flickered, and most stalls were already covered with blue tarps. But I wasn't ready to go home yet. Not to the silence of my mother's house, not to the sound of her labored breathing that reminded me how fragile everything had become. I walked deeper into the market, and that's when I saw him. A tall man in a faded brown coat stood at the far end, near a stall that wasn't usually there. The stall was dim, lit only by a single hanging bulb that swung slightly even though there was no breeze. A handwritten sign said, "Night Specials, one-of-a-kind items." What pulled me closer wasn't the stall, it was the man. He was perfectly still, too still, like he wasn't breathing. His head was slightly tilted upward, as if listening to something only he could hear. His skin looked pale, but what disturbed me most were his eyes. They didn't blink, they didn't move. They just stared into the dark as if waiting. "Evening," I said cautiously. He didn't react. I started turning away when he finally spoke. His voice was low, almost cracked. "Looking for something lost?" I froze. I hadn't told anyone, not even my mother, what bothered me most these days. How hollow I felt after returning, how much of myself seemed missing. "What do you mean?" I asked. He slowly lowered his head toward me. "People come here after dark only when they've lost something." I swallowed. "I'm just walking." "You're searching," he corrected. I felt a chill crawl up my neck. Something about the air around him felt wrong, like stepping into a patch of ice. The man lifted a cloth from the table, revealing small objects. An old pocket watch, a torn photograph, a rusted bracelet, keys with numbers carved into them, a child's shoes, a cracked compass, a ring with dried mud stuck to it. None of them looked new. All looked like they had been dug out of somewhere deep. "Pick one," he said. "Something belongs to you." "I don't own any of this," I muttered. He smiled slowly, painfully, like the muscles in his face weren't used to it. "They belong to those who never found their way home." That was enough. I stepped back. "Look, I need to go." But as soon as I turned, the entire market behind me changed. The stalls that were closed seconds ago suddenly stood open. Lights that were off were now glowing a dull orange. And figures, people, stood behind them. Except they weren't people. They didn't move. They didn't blink. They all stared at me as if I had disturbed something ancient. I whipped around to look for the man. He was gone. But his stall wasn't. It had multiplied. My heart hammered as I realized there were now 3 identical stalls, each with the same hanging light bulb, each with the same items arranged exactly the same way. I took a step back. The first stall's bulb flickered. The second buzzed loudly. The third swung violently as if someone had brushed past it. A voice whispered in my ear, though no one was beside me. "Choose!" I stumbled backward and bumped into something. Cold skin. A hand. I spun around. One of the stall keepers, one of the unmoving figures, had somehow shifted inches from me. Her eyes were glassy, unfocused, as if filled with fog. Her mouth twitched slightly, like something inside her was trying to speak through a mouth that didn't belong to it. "Leave me alone," I shouted. But shouting didn't help here, because the whole market seemed to lean in. The air felt heavy. The lights dimmed. The ground under my feet vibrated like something alive was stirring beneath the cobblestones. I realized then I wasn't trapped with the market. The market was waking up, and I was inside it. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't look back. I sprinted down the narrow aisle between stalls, knocking over a crate of glass bottles, a stack of baskets, a metal sign that screeched as it scraped the ground. But no matter how far I ran, Garland Street didn't end. I turned left. More stalls. I turned right. More identical vendors staring with empty, fogged-over eyes. My breath came fast and painful. My legs shook. My vision blurred. That's when I saw the fourth stall. But this one was different. There was nothing on the table, just a single wooden box, and something inside it was knocking. Slow, rhythmic knocks. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Pause. I stepped backward, terrified, but the path behind me was now blocked by at least 10 unmoving vendors, positioned shoulder to shoulder, like mannequins arranged by an invisible hand, their heads tilted in unison, toward the box. No, I whispered. I'm not opening that. But the box trembled harder. The knocking turned into pounding. Then, silence. For 2 seconds, nothing happened. Then the lid creaked open by itself. What emerged wasn't a hand. It wasn't even human. A curled, ashy gray limb slithered out, bending in impossible angles. Its skin was dry and cracked, like burnt wood. Sharp, rust-colored nails scraped the table as it crawled out further, revealing a second twisted limb, and then something like a head, but bent, distorted, as if crushed. A voice, high, broken, whispered from inside the box. "You came back." I stumbled away in horror. "Stay away from me!" The crawling thing pushed itself halfway out now, its face, or what was left of it, tilted toward me. Its mouth was stitched shut with dark wire. Its eyes were hollow pits that seemed to swallow what little light remained. Behind me, the vendors' heads twitched violently, like puppets jerked by tangled strings. The street lamps flickered again, then went dark. For a long, suffocating moment, the entire market was pitch black. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I heard was the thing dragging itself. Closer, closer, closer. A freezing hand grabbed my wrist. I screamed, and a voice whispered, "Run! Now!" It wasn't the creature. It was the man in the brown coat. He appeared from the darkness, gripping my arm with surprising strength. Before I could question anything, he yanked me between stalls, pulling me through a gap I didn't see before. The cobblestones blurred, the air twisted, and suddenly, I was outside the market. The silence of night hit me like a wave. Garland Street was empty, normal. No vendors, no twisted creature, no glowing stalls, no man. I collapsed to the sidewalk, trembling, gasping for air. The market lights behind me were off. The stalls were all closed. Everything looked ordinary, except for one thing. On the ground beside me, something small and metal rolled in a slow circle. I picked it up with shaking fingers. It was the rusted bracelet from the man's stall. Except now, my name was carved into the metal. My name. I stared at it, horrified, feeling ice spread through my chest. I dropped it immediately. But when it hit the ground, it made no sound, not a single clink, like it wasn't part of this world anymore. I ran home that night. I didn't sleep. I haven't gone back to Garland Street since. But sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet and the wind slips through the window cracks, I hear 3 faint knocks coming from outside. Then a voice whispers, "You didn't choose, so now we will." And I know, deep down, the market isn't done with me. Not yet. Story 4. I never believed that a place like Riverside Night Market, a cheerful, overcrowded maze of food stalls and neon lights in Portwell, Oregon, could hide something so monstrous. Every Friday night, tourists packed themselves shoulder to shoulder, buzzing around the smell of grilled corn, chili bowls, and cinnamon pretzels. Families laughed, vendors shouted, teenagers clicked selfies in front of the neon sign arch that read, "Riverside Night Market, open till midnight." But the night I'm telling you about, I still hear the screams in my sleep. My name is Ethan Hale, 27 years old, born and raised in Portwell. I worked as an assistant at a local print shop, barely earning enough to pay rent, but Friday nights were my escape. Walking the market, buying cheap food, watching the chaos of humanity around me. That night, though, the air felt heavier. Still, too quiet for a Friday. I should have gone home. But I didn't. I was buying tacos at my favorite stall when I first saw her. A woman stood behind stall 19, isolated from the rest of the market. Her stall had no customers, no lights, just a hand-painted sign, "Old goods, don't ask twice." She wore a tattered gray coat, though the night wasn't cold and her hair hung over her eyes. Everyone else passed her stall as if it didn't exist. But the strange part, whenever someone walked by, she whispered something, soft, urgent, almost pleading. I'd never seen her before, and I knew every vendor here. The city required permits to sell, and stall 19 hadn't been open in years, not since the fire. I stepped closer. She slowly raised her face. Her eyes were dark, not in color, but in feeling, like staring into a hole. "You can see me," she whispered. My throat dried. "Yeah, why wouldn't I?" A faint smile pulled at her lips. "Most people can't." I forced a nervous laugh. Okay, so, what are you selling?" Her fingers trembled as she reached under the table and lifted something wrapped in old newspaper. "Not selling," she said. "Returning." She unwrapped it. It was a broken pocket watch, its glass cracked, its hands frozen at 12 o'clock. "Take it," she said. I don't want it." "Take it," she repeated more forcefully. "You were meant to." Something about her voice crawled under my skin. I backed away. "Sorry, I'm not interested." Her smile disappeared. "You've already been chosen, Ethan Hale." My blood froze. "How do you know my name?" She didn't answer. She just whispered, "Midnight. Don't look at stall 19 when it happens." Before I could even think of a reply, a loud shout came from behind me. Someone bumped into me, one of the market security guards. When I looked back at the stall, it was empty. No woman, no table, no sign, nothing. Just darkness. By 11:30 p.m., the market was twice as crowded. Music blasted. The smell of fried dough filled the air. I tried to forget the woman and enjoy the night. Then the screaming started. A man in a blue jacket stumbled out from the direction of stall 19, clutching at his chest, eyes wide with terror. "Help! Somebody help me!" People turned. Vendors froze. I pushed through the crowd toward him, but the moment he reached the main walkway, he vanished. He didn't run, didn't fall, didn't crouch. He vanished. Right in front of hundreds of people. The crowds erupted into panic. Some screamed. Others ran. A few stood stunned, trying to rationalize what we just saw. Security rushed in, but they were too late. Something had taken him. I should have left. I should have run home and locked myself inside. But her words kept replaying, "Midnight, don't look at stall 19, which meant something would happen at midnight. At 11:59, the market lights flickered. Music skipped. Every generator buzzed like it was struggling to breathe. Then the clock hit 12 o'clock, and all the lights went out. Screams filled the air. I felt bodies pushing and shoving, but I stayed still, breathing in the darkness. The dark wasn't empty. Something was moving through it, something heavy, something dragging chains. A cold hand brushed my shoulder. I froze. "Ethan," it was her voice. "I told you not to look." But I hadn't looked. It was pitch black. Then a dim, unnatural glow lit up behind me. My heart slammed against my ribs. Against every instinct in my body, I turned. I looked at stall 19, and I wish I hadn't. The stall was lit by a pale, sickly blue light. The woman was there, but twisted. Her limbs hung wrong, stretching too far, bending in ways bones shouldn't. Her face was torn open with a wide, unnatural smile. And she wasn't alone. Behind her stood something huge, a towering figure made of shadows and ash, with long claws scraping the wooden counter. Its body shifted like smoke, but its eyes, bright, burning white, locked onto me. The woman spoke, but her voice was layered with something ancient, something not human. "Time is broken here, Ethan Hale. You were chosen to fix it." My legs trembled. I don't understand." The shadow creature leaned forward, its voice rumbling like thunder. "The watch." I realized something terrifying. The broken pocket watch, its hands pointing to 12 o'clock. Midnight. The exact moment everything began. The woman held it out to me. "Take it," she whispered, "or you'll join the others." All around us, the blue glow intensified. And then I saw them. Dozens of faces, distorted, screaming, trapped inside the walls of the stall, their arms stretched outward as if trying to escape. One of them was the man who had vanished. His mouth was open in a silent scream. My hands shook violently as I took the watch. The moment my fingers touched it, the market shattered. I blinked. Suddenly, I wasn't standing in a crowd. I was in the past. The market looked newer, brighter, freshly built. No neon signs, no music. And stall 19 was intact. A younger version of the same woman stood behind it, smiling gently as customers browsed through antiques. Then the sky darkened. Smoke filled the air. People screamed. A fire. The fire. The one that had destroyed the original Riverside night market 15 years ago. The one people said killed 3 vendors, including the owner of stall 19. I tried to move, but my feet felt glued to the ground. Flames consumed tents. Wooden stalls collapsed. The woman at stall 19, the real one, tried to escape, but the fire spread too quickly. She was trapped. She reached out for help, but nobody could reach her. Her screams grew sharper, echoing in my skull. When the flames engulfed her, something tore open in reality. A rip, a wound, and a black figure crawled out of the fire. The same shadow creature. That was the birth of it. And stall 19 wasn't just a stall anymore. It had become a doorway. I gasped and snapped back to the present. The market was still dark. People still screamed. And the shadow creature still towered above me. The woman, now half human, half nightmare, spoke. "You've seen what created the door. Now close it." "How?" "The watch." I looked down. The hands, once frozen at 12 o'clock, now began spinning wildly. The creature roared and tried to block me. But the woman grabbed its arm, screaming, "Go, Ethan!" I didn't think. I slammed the watch against the stall's wooden frame. The blue light erupted into a blinding beam. The ground shook. The air tore open with a sound like splitting steel, and the doorway began collapsing. The creature shrieked, trying to escape, but the woman held it down, flames bursting around her. "You can't leave this place open," she screamed. "Finish it!" I raised the watch and smashed it again. A shock wave blasted through the entire market. Everything disappeared in white light. I woke up on the pavement as paramedics arrived. The market lights were back. Vendors were confused, terrified. Some remembered the blackout. Others remembered nothing at all. But stall 19? It wasn't there. Not burnt, not broken, just gone, like it never existed. I tried to explain what happened, but no one believed me. No one even remembered the vanishing man. But I know what I saw. I know what I stopped. I also know something else. The broken pocket watch was gone, reduced to ashes. But every night at 12 o'clock, I hear a faint clicking sound outside my window, like the ticking of a broken clock trying to move again. And sometimes, I see the shape of a woman in a gray coat standing in the corner of my street, watching me, waiting. For what? I don't know. But I fear stall 19 wasn't destroyed, only delayed. Story 5. I never believed in the supernatural. Not when I was a kid, not when my mom told me stories about haunted basements in our old Michigan house, not even when strange things happened around me. Lights flickering, doors clicking shut, shadows moving. I always blame wiring, wind, imagination. But what happened in Riverside Street Market in Spokane, Washington, changed everything. It started on a cold Friday night last October, my first night shift at the market after losing my job at the delivery warehouse. I needed the income. My mom was sick, bills were stacking, and I'd take anything to keep us afloat. The Riverside Street Market wasn't anything special, just a long, narrow stretch of stalls between 2 aging brick buildings. Neon signs buzzed above food carts. Locals haggled over produce. The smell of fried dough hung in the air. On weekends, the place felt alive. Music, chatter, the sound of kids running. But that night, something felt wrong from the moment I stepped in. I worked at Grant's Fresh Goods, a small produce stall owned by an old man named Walter Grant. He was the type of guy who never smiled but still cared in his own way. He warned me before leaving, If a man in a brown coat comes around past 11, do not speak to him. Do not look at him for too long. Keep your head down. Pack up early if you have to. I laughed, thinking it was some kind of old man superstition. But the look in his eyes, it wasn't a joke. As the night went on, the crowd thinned. Vendors pulled down tarps. A cold wind pushed through the narrow walkway, rattling metal shelves. Around 11:07 p.m., the market shifted. Lights flickered. A sudden stillness fell over everything. And then I smelled it, a damp, earthy scent, like soil that had been dug up after decades. Heavy, thick, wrong. I looked up. Someone was standing at the far end of the street, a tall figure, a long brown coat, not moving, not breathing, just watching. His presence felt like pressure against my chest. I told myself not to panic. Spokane had all kinds of people wandering around at night. Homeless folks, drunk college kids, travelers. Nothing unusual. But this man, there was something fundamentally off. He didn't walk like a person. He drifted, shoulders stiff, his head tilted slightly as if he were listening to something I couldn't hear. The other vendors didn't seem to notice him at all. They just kept packing up like everything was normal. But I felt his eyes on me. I bent down, pretending to organize apples into crates, and whispered under my breath, "Don't look at him. Don't look." But I did, just once. His face was pale, stretched in a way that didn't look natural. His mouth was slightly open as though he were silently breathing in every detail of me. And his eyes, pitch black, reflective, empty. I froze. My legs locked. My breath stuck halfway in my throat. He lifted one hand and pointed at me slowly, like he was selecting something, or someone. Me. My phone buzzed suddenly, making me jump. A message from Mr. Grant. "Is he there?" My heart dropped. My hands shook as I typed back, "The man in the brown coat?" 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, "Pack up, leave. Do not talk to him." Before I could finish reading the message, something slammed against the metal frame of my stall. I flinched hard. It was a sound like someone hitting it with their full body weight. But when I looked, no one was there. The man in the brown coat hadn't moved, but the distance between us was shorter. He was closer. The space around him shimmered, like heat rising from asphalt. I thought I was hallucinating. I blinked hard. He was closer again. No footsteps. No movement. Just there. I felt my throat tighten. My body screamed run, but my legs refused. Across the aisle, a vendor named Lily, a cheerful woman who sold handmade jewelry, was closing her stall. She looked up, saw how pale I was, and rushed over. "Are you okay? You look like you're about to pass out." I pointed weakly. "Do you see him? That man. Right there." She frowned. "What man?" I whipped my head toward her. "What do you mean, what man? The one in the brown coat." She scanned the entire aisle. "There's nobody there." A coldness ran down my back. Either she couldn't see him, or he wasn't meant for her. Just me. I backed away, knocking over a crate of apples. They rolled across the ground in every direction. When I looked up again, he was standing right outside my stall, less than 5 feet away. Lily gasped, not because she saw him, but because of me falling backward onto the pavement. I scrambled away on my hands, my eyes locked on the figure. His mouth slowly widened, and widened, and widened, until it split unnaturally across his face. I don't remember standing. I don't remember grabbing my backpack. I only remember running, past stalls, past trash bins, past flickering lamps, until I reached the parking lot. The lights above the lot buzzed violently. My breath came in shallow bursts. I nearly dropped my keys trying to unlock my old Honda. When I finally started the engine, I saw him, standing at the entrance to the lot, facing me, still pointing. I sped out so fast the tires screeched, but he didn't chase. He just watched. When I reached home, I collapsed onto the couch. My heart wouldn't slow down. At 1:13 a.m., my phone rang. It was Mr. Grant. His voice trembled as he spoke. "He chose you, didn't he?" I couldn't respond. My throat tightened. "Listen carefully. The market was built over old grounds. Land that used to belong to the Whitlock family in the late 1800s. The brown coat man, he was real, a hunter. He stalked people he believed were tainted. Locals hanged him after he murdered 3 teenagers in 1892. I held the phone, frozen. They say his spirit returns, looking for someone new, someone who sees him. My room grew colder, my breath fogged in the air. "Tell me, son," he whispered. "Did you meet his eyes?" I closed my eyes tightly. "Yes." "Silence, then. Don't sleep tonight. Whatever you do, don't fall asleep." The call ended. Around 3:04 a.m., I heard something outside my apartment window. A scrape, slow, deliberate. I forced myself to look. There he was, standing on the empty street across from my building, head tilted, looking straight up at my window. I backed away slowly, hands shaking. The lights in my apartment flickered once, twice, 3 times, and went out. The darkness felt alive. Something creaked behind me, like boots on my wooden floor. I turned and saw a tall shadow stretching across my living room wall. Not from a person, from something inside the room. A whisper crawled through the darkness. "Seen." My breath caught in my throat. The shadow moved, closely, slowly, toward me. I don't remember screaming. Maybe I did. Maybe the sound never escaped my mouth. The next morning, my neighbor found my apartment door wide open. Lights shattered, furniture overturned. My phone on the ground, screen cracked. I wasn't there. And here's the part that keeps people up at night. Security camera footage from the hallway shows me walking out of my apartment at exactly 3:17 a.m. Eyes open, expression blank. Behind me, barely visible, was the faint outline of a tall figure in a brown coat. No face, no footsteps. Just following. No one has found me since. But sometimes, people shopping late at night at Riverside Street Market swear they see me, standing at the far end of the aisle, with a tall man in a brown coat right behind me, silently pointing at the next person who looks at us for too long. Story 6. I never believed a street market could change someone's life, let alone destroy it, until I stepped into Riverside Night Mart, a sprawling weekend marketplace tucked under the Vincent Bridge in Portwell, Oregon. I had walked through its narrow aisles 1,000 times growing up, weaving between food stalls, neon-lit trinket booths, and old vendors who told stories that sounded too strange to be true. Back then, those stories felt harmless, like folklore meant to scare children. I didn't know one of them would eventually become my reality. I was 27, working double shifts as a delivery driver and living in a cramped studio apartment on 3rd Street. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. My favorite escape was Riverside Night Mart, open only on Fridays and Saturdays, glowing like a lantern in the dark. My mother used to take me there when I was 9. She'd hold my hand tight and warn me, "Don't wander off, Eli. Some stalls aren't what they look like." I thought she meant pickpockets or scammers, but after what happened, I think she meant something else. Something she never explained while she was alive. When she passed from a sudden aneurysm 2 years ago, Riverside Night Mart became my comfort place. A way to feel close to her. A way to remember her voice drowned out by sizzling food and loud music. If only I had listened more carefully to her warnings. It started 2 months ago, on a chilly Saturday night. The wind cut between the tents, carrying smells of roasted corn, garlic fries, and soy-glazed chicken. I was walking toward my usual coffee booth when I noticed something strange. A stall I had never seen before. Hidden between an old leather shop and a fruit cart was a narrow tent made of black canvas, its opening covered with strips of tattered cloth. No lights, no signboard, no customers. Just a single lantern glowing faintly inside, casting long shadows on the pavement. I frowned. Riverside Night Mart was always the same. Same vendors, same stalls. There wasn't space for new ones unless someone left, and nobody ever did. Curious and stupid, I stepped toward it. A woman's voice drifted from the dark. "Come in, Eli." My heart stopped. I hadn't said my name. Nobody around me had. I should have turned around. But that voice, it sounded like my mother. Inside the stall sat an elderly woman behind a wooden table filled with items wrapped in black cloth. Her face was pale, her hair long and gray, and her eyes did not blink, not once. They stared straight at me, unbroken, unbreathing. She smiled slowly. "You've come back. I was waiting." "I think you've mistaken me for someone else," I said uneasily. "No, we never mistake our chosen ones." My hands went cold. There was something wrong with her smile. It stretched a little too wide, like skin pulled beyond what it should. I began backing away. That's when I heard it, a whisper coming from the black-wrapped items on the table. Soft, desperate, overlapping voices murmuring like hundreds of people speaking through cloth. "Help us!" I froze. The woman didn't react. She just stared. "What? What is that?" I asked. She raised a finger, almost lovingly, toward one of the wrapped packages. "Memories," she whispered. "Memories people leave behind." I didn't stay to ask more. I ran out of the stall, my heart slamming in my chest. But even as I left, I felt something following me, a whisper clinging to the back of my neck. That night in my apartment, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the woman's unblinking stare. Around 3:14 a.m., I heard something move near my door. Then, clear as day, I heard the same whisper from the stall. "Eli, why did you leave us?" I jumped up, switched on the lights, grabbed the nearest thing, a metal broom, but the hallway was empty. My chest tightened. I told myself I was imagining things, but then I saw it. On the floor, right in front of my door, was a small black-wrapped bundle, just like the ones from the stall. I stared at it for almost a full minute, my mind refusing to comprehend what I was seeing. And then, slowly, it moved, just a tiny twitch, but enough to send terror through my entire body. I didn't touch it, I didn't go near it. I pushed it out into the hallway with the broom and slammed the door shut. But the whispers didn't leave. They continued through the door, through the walls, through the very air. "Why did you leave the market? Come back, come back." I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I drove to Riverside Police Station. I told Officer Grant, a man who'd known me since high school, what I had heard and seen. He typed something casually while listening, then asked, "Which stall was it? Because Eli, the market hasn't approved new vendors in 5 years. I'm telling you what I saw." He leaned forward. "Did the stall have a number?" "Every vendor has a number." I shook my head. "No number. No sign. No lights. No registration." Grant sighed. "Markets attract weirdos. Maybe someone was trespassing with a table. Just avoid them." But his expression changed when I mentioned the cloth-wrapped memories and the voices. "And you're sure it whispered to you?" "As sure as I'm talking to you right now." He looked troubled but didn't say anything. I could tell he didn't believe me. But I didn't need his belief. I just needed the nightmares to stop. The whispers didn't stop. For 2 days they followed me everywhere, at work, in my car, in the shower, always behind me, always begging. Finally I broke. If the stall was still there, I had to confront the woman. I had to know why she called my name, why the voices followed me home. I went back Saturday night. At first, everything looked normal. Tourists, lights, music, chatter. But when I turned the corner toward the leather shop, there it was. The same black tent, same lantern, same emptiness around it, like people unconsciously avoided it. But something was wrong. This time, when I stepped inside, the woman was not alone. Behind her hung dozens of black-wrapped bundles, some small as fists, some large as heads, all suspended from ropes like grotesque ornaments. They twitched softly, whispering like disturbed sleepers. "You came back," she said, smiling with that stretched, inhuman smile. "They've been waiting." My voice shook. "What do you want from me?" She tilted her head. "You've forgotten something here." "I don't understand." She placed a black bundle in front of me. "This is yours." I stepped back. "No, I didn't." "Everyone leaves something behind in the market. Some leave happiness, some leave hope, some—" She leaned closer. "Leave pieces of their soul." My mouth went dry. "That's insane." She didn't blink. "Open it." "I'm not touching that thing." Her smile slowly disappeared. Her eyes sharpened, dark, deep, hollow. "Open it, Eli, or they will open you." Every bundle hanging behind her began to twitch violently. Whispers turned to groans. Groans turned to cries. My body froze in terror. I ran again. But this time, something followed. At 2:57 a.m., I heard 3 slow knocks on my door. Knock, knock, knock. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then I heard the whisper, "You left your soul behind." I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and called Officer Grant. He picked up groggily. "Eli? What the hell? Someone is at my door. I think it's from that stall." He sighed hard. "Stay put. I'm coming." As I waited, the knocking continued. Slow, patient, rhythmic. Not loud, more like a reminder. When Grant finally arrived, he didn't see anyone. But he did see what was left on my doorstep. Another black-wrapped bundle. Bigger this time. Still moving. Grant didn't believe the paranormal part, but he knew stalking when he saw it. He told me to get in his cruiser, and he drove straight to Riverside Night Mart. Despite my protests, the market was still open, windy, crowded. Grant walked through the aisles with a flashlight, badge out, scanning every stall. But when we reached the place where the black tent had been, it was gone. Not just closed. Gone. The leather shop and fruit cart were still there, but the space between them had vanished. The aisle was narrower, like there had never been a stall there at all. Grant scratched his head. "You sure this is the right spot?" I opened my mouth to answer, but stopped, because from the corner of my eye, behind Grant's shoulder, I saw something. The black tent, farther away, at the very end of the market, in a pitch-dark corner. Impossible to see unless someone wanted you to. Grant followed my stare. "What is that?" He walked toward it. "Grant, stop!" I grabbed his arm. "Don't go inside, please." He pulled away. "I'm just going to talk to them." He stepped through the black cloth strips. I stayed outside. 30 seconds passed, then a minute, then 2. "Grant?" I whispered. No response. I peeked inside. He was gone. The stall was empty, except for one new bundle on the table, freshly wrapped, larger than a human head, whispering, "Help! Us!" I screamed and ran, shoving through crowds until my lungs burned. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. I didn't sleep at all. I knew what I had to do. I had to destroy that stall, whatever it really was. The next Friday, armed with lighter fluid and a steel flashlight, I returned to the market. I waited until closing time when the crowd thinned out, and then I found it. The black tent, exactly where it had been the first time. I stepped inside slowly, expecting the woman, but she wasn't there. Only the bundles, hundreds of them now, filling every corner, hanging from ropes, piled on the floor, stacked along the walls. They whispered in unison, "Set us free! Eli, set us free!" I dropped the flashlight. My hands shook as I poured lighter fluid across the ground, over the ropes, the bundles, the table. The whispers rose in pitch, desperate, almost frantic. "Hurry!" My eyes blurred with tears. I lit the match. The tent exploded in flame. Bundled shapes twitched violently, thrashing as if their souls were escaping. Voices screamed, cried, begged, thanked. The tent burned hotter than fabric should. I ran until the screams disappeared behind me. By the time the fire trucks arrived, the stall had burned itself into a perfect circle of black ash. Nothing remained. No wood, no ropes, no cloth. Just a hole in the market's layout, like something erased from existence. For 2 weeks, everything stopped. No whispers, no bundles, no knocks. I thought I was free, until I visited my mother's old friend Martha, who had worked at the market for 30 years. When I told her what happened, she turned pale. "Eli, your mother tried to destroy that stall too." My blood ran cold. "She said it followed her," Martha whispered. "She heard her own dead mother calling from one of the bundles. She tried to burn it, but she couldn't." "Why not?" Martha swallowed. "Because once you open the stall, it doesn't leave you." I felt the room tilt. "Your mother didn't die from an aneurysm, Eli. She died the night she went back to the market." My legs nearly gave out beneath me. Martha squeezed my hand gently. That stall chooses people, and once it chooses, it collects. Collects what? I whispered. She stared into my eyes, terrified. Pieces of the soul people forget to guard. Last night it returned. Not in the market, not in my dreams. In my apartment. At exactly 3:14 a.m. A black tent, full size, stood in the corner of my living room, its cloth strips swaying in air that wasn't moving. And inside I saw her, the woman, eyes unblinking, smile stretched wide, holding a single bundle wrapped in fresh black cloth. She placed it gently on my table. This is the last piece, Eli. My throat closed. I whispered, what happens when all the pieces are taken? She leaned close, her cold breath brushing my ear. Then you join them. Behind her, dozens of bundles twitched violently, whispering my name with desperate, hungry longing. I didn't touch it. I didn't go near it. I ran out of my apartment barefoot, fumbling for my keys, racing to my car. But as I drove away, heart pounding, I saw something in my rearview mirror. A black wrap bundle sitting in my back seat, whispering softly. You can't leave. Not anymore. I'm writing this from a motel room near the state line. Lights on, every curtain closed. The bundle is still in my car. I don't know how long before the woman finds me again. Maybe tonight, maybe in the next hour, maybe when I close my eyes, but if anyone finds this story, if anyone hears whispers in a market late at night, don't go inside the stall. Don't touch the bundles. Don't listen to the voices. I didn't, and they still followed me. Because once Riverside Night Mart chooses you, you never leave without losing something. Story 7. I never believed that a street market could hold memories darker than abandoned buildings or empty highways. But everything changed the night I stepped into Dawson Street Night Market, a place in Portwell, Oregon, that locals casually warn newcomers about, always with a half-joking, half-serious tone. I had moved to Portwell only 3 weeks earlier. My name is Evan Carter, 29 years old, working as a freelance photographer, trying to rebuild my portfolio after losing most of my equipment in a house fire back in Texas. The insurance money hadn't come in yet, and I needed new work, anything that could pay my bills. That's when a stranger in a local diner told me, if you want atmospheric shots, man, Dawson Street Market after 10 p.m., strange crowd, real unique vibe. He said it with a kind of grin you give someone when you want them to walk into a prank or a trap. But I was desperate, and desperate people make stupid decisions. The market opened only at night, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., every Thursday to Saturday. When I arrived that Thursday, the street was buzzing with lights, steam rising from food stalls, and the hum of conversations mixing with distant music. It looked almost normal, except for one thing. Everyone seemed too quiet for a night market. Vendors whispered instead of calling out. Shoppers moved slowly, deliberately, as if following an invisible script. No one made sudden movements. No one laughed loudly. No one shouted. It felt like a market inside a library. I lifted my camera, planning to start with a few wide shots, when a hand grabbed my wrist. A woman, mid-40s, pale skin, long brown coat, shook her head at me. Don't take pictures of them, she whispered urgently. Of who? She only stared at me for a long, uncomfortable moment before saying, if you see someone who's not blinking, don't look at them. Just walk. The hell was that supposed to mean? Before I could ask her name, she slipped into the crowd and disappeared like smoke. I tried brushing off her warning. People in small towns always had urban legends. Maybe this was theirs. Dawson Street's spooky night market tale meant to keep tourists cautious. Still, her words nagged at me. I kept walking, passing stalls selling handmade jewelry, old vinyl records, antique cameras, and vintage clothes. The lighting was dim, bulbs wrapped in red paper lanterns giving everything a warm, eerie glow. 10 minutes later, I noticed something strange. A man at a fruit stall was staring straight at me. He wasn't blinking, not once. He held a bright red apple in his hand, unmoving, as if frozen mid-gesture. His eyes were wide open, too wide, like the skin around them had been stretched. Sir, you want something? I asked, forcing a polite smile. No response. No blink. His stare intensified until a cold shiver ran down my spine. I stepped back, bumping into another person, a young girl holding a stuffed rabbit. She looked up at me slowly, and her eyes didn't blink either. My heartbeat hammered against my ribs. Two people, both unblinking, both staring directly at me. This wasn't coincidence. I walked quickly toward a busier area of the market. The smell of grilled corn and cinnamon pastries filled the air, mixing with the salty breeze from the nearby river. But something was off. People I passed looked normal, chatting softly, buying snacks, browsing clothes. But from the corner of my eye, I kept catching glimpses of figures standing still, watching, their eyes open, unblinking. I tried telling myself they were mannequins or performance artists, but their movements were just wrong enough. Barely noticeable, small shifts, like breathing from the center of their chest instead of their lungs. It made me nauseous. I decided I'd take a few photos and leave. But when I lifted my camera again, the fruit stall man appeared behind me. No footsteps, no warning. Just there, unblinking. Too close. I froze. His mouth opened slightly like he wanted to speak, but instead a faint clicking sound came out, like teeth tapping against teeth in an unnatural rhythm. I stepped away in terror. He stepped forward without bending his knees, sliding more than walking. That was it. I needed to get out. I pushed through the crowd, breathing hard, my palms sweating. People glanced at me but didn't help or ask what happened. They just stepped aside, eyes lowered, like they didn't want to get involved. As I neared the exit, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I flinched, turning sharply. It was the woman from earlier, the one who warned me. "You need to follow me," she said urgently. "Now." "Who are those people?" I whispered, trembling. "They're not people anymore," she said. "Dawson Street has rules. You broke one." "What rule?" "No photography. Ever. The ones who don't blink. They hate being seen." Before I could respond, something in the crowd shifted. At least 6 unblinking figures turned in perfect unison toward us. The clicking sound began again. Fast, sharp, angry. "Run!" the woman hissed. We sprinted into a narrow alley behind the market. The sound of clicking footsteps followed like a swarm of insects chasing prey. The alley was dim, lit only by a flickering street lamp. The woman led me to an old metal door behind a boarded-up bakery. She banged her fist against it 3 times. A sliding panel opened. A pair of tired eyes stared out. "He broke the rule," she said. "Let him in." The door opened. Inside, several people huddled in a cramped room, candles lit, maps and notes pinned everywhere. It looked like an underground bunker. "Is this a shelter?" I asked. "More like a last chance," the woman replied. An older man approached. "I'm Harold. We study them." "Study what?" "The lookers," the woman said. "That's what we call them." The older man nodded. "They used to be regular vendors and shoppers here, but years ago something infected the market. People who stayed too long at night began changing. First they stopped speaking, then blinking. Then they started watching." "Watching for what?" I asked. "For anyone new. Anyone who doesn't follow the rules." My stomach sank. How do I make them stop looking for me? Harold exhaled slowly. "You don't." A sudden slam hit the metal door, shaking the entire room. The lookers had found us. The clicking noise intensified, multiple sets of teeth tapping in rapid, unnatural patterns. "Is this place safe?" I whispered. "No place is safe," Harold said. "They see through walls. They move when no one's looking. They appear where they shouldn't." Another slam, harder this time. "They want you," the woman said. "You're fresh. Your scent is new." I felt my chest tighten. The lights flickered. The door bent inward slightly as if pressed by tremendous force. "They're getting in!" someone screamed. Harold grabbed my shoulders. "Listen to me. Once they choose you, there's only one way out." "Tell me!" "You have to go back into the market, alone." "What? Why?" He swallowed hard. "They don't want your body, they want your attention. They feed on being watched." The realization hit me like ice. "I have to let them watch me?" "Yes," he whispered, "until they're done." The door split down the middle. The lookers poured in. I didn't wait. I bolted through a side exit, sprinting back toward the market. Behind me I heard screams. Human, terrified, ending abruptly. I burst into Dawson Street again, now empty and silent. Every stall closed, every lantern dim, except one. In the center of the street stood all of the lookers, dozens of them, arranged in a perfect circle facing inward, waiting for me. My legs shook, but I stepped forward. Their heads snapped toward me in unison. Click, 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 click. The sound drilled into my skull. I stood there, forcing myself to look at them, into their wide, unblinking eyes. My vision blurred, breath shallow. Minutes passed. Hours felt like they crawled by. The lookers didn't move. They only stared, their eyes reflecting red lantern light like glass marbles. Finally, one by one, they turned away, like losing interest. Their bodies stiffened, and they walked back into the shadows, disappearing into the stalls, melting into the market's darkness. All except one, the fruit stall man. He walked up to me, slowly, wrongly, and finally blinked. Just once. A long, painful blink. Then he whispered in a dry voice like dead leaves, "You'll be back." I ran home, packed my bags. I left Portwell that same night, but the nightmares haven't stopped. Every time I close my eyes, I see their faces, pale, stretched, unblinking, watching from the corners of abandoned stalls. And sometimes, when I'm out late in a different city, I hear that unmistakable clicking sound behind me, like teeth tapping, slowly, patiently. Last night, I got an anonymous message with no name, no number. "You looked at us. We remember." I don't think Dawson Street was just a market. I don't think those things were human. And I know one thing for certain. They're still watching.